is ridiculous. We are running out of time. I know everyone is still on Raya mode. Iman Natasha, you as a project manager, can you explain why all this problem arises?
I'm sorry, Miss Raz. This problem arises is actually because of our updated construction accounting information system that slowed down the progress of our project.
Okay, so what do we have to do now? Anyone has any solution to solve this problem?
Miss Raz, I have an idea. Why not we convert to a new construction accounting information system to solve this problem?
Okay, sounds like a great idea, Maria. So, what do we have to do now? I mean, what is the procedure?
Okay, let me explain.
Finding the right eyes provider for a company is a demanding process that requires time. To make it easier, I will explain the top 4 purchasing process that we should consider. The first one is selecting a vendor. Vendors are found by looking in phone book, obtaining referrals, at conferences, in industry magazines, using search organization and on the internet. Choosing must be done carefully because vendors with little experience, insufficient capital, or a poor product go out of business and leave their customers and products with no support or recourse. Problems can occur even when established vendors are selected. For example, when Texas selected IBM to consolidate data centers across the state, service levels dropped dramatically and routine tasks took far too long to perform. The problem was attributed to poor project requirements and selecting the vendor with the lowest bid. IBM almost lost the contract after it failed to back up critical systems. So, after we conducting interviewers and researching on suitable vendors' background, we will have to select a few vendors from whom we would like for more information. The vendor selection team can then write a request for proposal (RFP) and send it to the selected vendors. So, what is actually request for proposal? RFP is a document that describes your company, lists the IT services or products the company need, and specifies the features that company require and spells out the service and support levels the company require. When buying large or complex system, a request for proposal (RFP) should be prepared for them to propose a system that meets their needs. The best proposals are investigated to verify that company requirements can be met. For example, Maju developer Sandy Ramberhart will need a construction accounting software package that provide financial accounting design specifically with contractors in mind. Features include project accounting, job costing, and specialized progress billing. Whether the construction project entails residential, commercial, or industrial work, construction accounting software will help track real-time expenses such as materials and labor, track revenue, and pay our employees effectively. So, this is the example of request of proposal that Maju developers Sandy Ramberhart require for their needs. As we can see right here, there are few features, for instance, job costing, revenue recognition, construction billing and retainage, and reports like project cash flow and budget management. These are the example of features and reports that the company needs in the new ICE. Beyond that, the features and functionality available will vary by vendor, and we will need to evaluate which are important for our company and which we can live without. Being able to do so will help make sure our business requirements are met without spending more on a product with features we don't need. This section of the guide highlights many of the construction-specific features that a construction company might come across when evaluating software options. What is the purpose of RFP? The first one is to obtain proposal on supplying commercial software packages from various vendors. Next, each prospective vendor is sent an RFP explaining the nature of the problem, the objectives of the system, and the deadline for proposal submission. The RFP includes a format for responses to facilitate a comparison of the proposals from different vendors. Using an RFP is important as it can save time because the same information is provided to all vendors, eliminating repetitive interviewers and questions. It is also simplifying the decision-making process. All the responses are in the same format and based on the same information, and it can make the firms more readily comparable. Other than that, the advantage of RFP is it can reduce error. The chances of overlooking important factors are reduced. The last one is it can enable a focus on specific criteria, like the vendor selection team can direct the evaluation committee to focus on specific information. This ensures that the evaluation committee won't be influenced by other information that is not needed to compare one vendor's platform to another. Although the RFP procurement process has a number of benefits, it also has some downsides. The first disadvantages of RFP is the RFP is lacks of flexibility. A RFP represents what the company thinks their service requirements are at a moment in time, but it won't know what the company needs 6 months from now. If something changes in terms of strategy or key objectives during the process, it could render the RFP obsolete overnight. Next, the RFP template won't have enough detail. Despite our best efforts, we will never be able to create a detailed enough RFP to provide actionable information to a potential vendor. A single document can effectively communicate organizational context and business rationale, requirements and priorities, integration points, and all the other particulars necessary to successfully scope and build software. Other than that, the RFP process also will never be transparent. Proponents claim that by definition, the RFP process is more fair and transparent. This honesty is supposedly to be one of the greatest benefits of an RFP process. But the truth, however, is that incumbent vendors often help write RFPs and tailor them so they will win the business. Since the RFP is a formal process, it also often lacks creativity. It is difficult for respondents to sufficiently explain alternative solutions or offer creative, experienced input for optimization. As the buyer, hiring an experienced vendor that can not only fulfill needs but also provide alternative solutions that could simplify or enhance the project should be the end goal. The third process is evaluating the RFPs. After the RFP has been sent to the vendors, then Maju developers Sendiri and Berhad need to compare the proposal based on if they meet all mandatory requirements, how many of the desirable requirements they meet, and methods of gathering facts on software. Proposal that lacks important information, fail to meet minimum requirements, or are ambiguous are eliminated. Proposal passing this preliminary screening are compared with system requirements to determine whether all mandatory requirements are met and how many desirable requirements are met. Then, top vendors are invited to demonstrate their system using company supplied data to measure system performance and validate vendors' claim. System performance can be compared several ways. A benchmark problem is an input, processing and output task typical of what the new ICE will perform. Basically, the benchmark problem method calculates and compares the processing times of different ICE to compare system performance. So, the ICE with the lowest time is judged to be the most efficient. Point scoring assigns a weight to each evaluation criterion based on the prioritized criteria. For each criterion, vendors are scored based on how well their proposal meets their requirement, and the weighted score totals are compared. By weighting each of the criteria and evaluating each vendor response against these criteria, we will get a total score per vendor. The weighted scoring approach breaks down your RFP evaluation criteria and assigns a value to each question or section. For example, your RFP criteria may consider questions of technical expertise, capabilities, data security, HR policies, and diversity and sustainability. Weighted scoring prioritizes the criteria that are most important to business by assigning them a point or percentage value. This example gives you some illustration on this. In this table, Vendor 3 offers the best systems because its system scored 190 points more than Vendor 2 did. The next system performance is requirement costing. Requirement costing estimates the cost of purchasing or developing unavailable features. Total ICE cost, which is the cost of acquiring the system, and the cost of developing the unavailable features, provides an equitable basis for comparing systems. Because neither point scoring nor requirements costing is totally objective, the final choice among vendor proposal is not clear-cut. Point scoring weights and scores are assigned subjectively, and dollar estimates of costs and benefits are not included. Requirement costing overlooks intangible factors such as reliability and vendor support. For vendor support, we need to consider regarding client training, user and technical documentation and warranties that those vendors provide. This is to prevent vendors from going out of business and leaving their clients and products without assistance or remedy. The last one is contact user groups. Once the best eyes is identified, the chosen software should be truly test-driven. Other users are contacted to determine their satisfaction with the choice, vendor personnel are evaluated, and proposal details are confirmed to verify that the best eyes on paper actually is the best in practice. The last purchasing process is we need to make a final selection based upon the company criteria. We have to eliminate any proposals that are missing important information, fail to meet minimum requirements, and are ambiguous. This entire process made me realize that it is not a simple process and neither one that should be taken lightly. Choosing the right vendor requires strategic thinking as your choice of vendor influences multiple aspects of your business.
I see. Thank you, Maria, for the comprehensive explanation. Now I know the real process of selecting a vendor. I think Iman can proceed with Maria's idea.
Alright, Miss Rez, will do.